All of Tom's $5 million in assets will be inherited by me, his wife. Beside my triumphant sister, who shouted with a smug smile, the lawyer remained composed. But all of it was, in truth, part of my late husband's desperate plan, a life-risking act of revenge to protect me and our child from the devil. It had all begun 6 months earlier, on what should have been the happiest day of my life. My name is Mary. I've never been comfortable being the center of attention. Since childhood, I lived in the shadow of my glamorous younger sister, Sarah, always trying not to draw notice. As soon as I could, I escaped our suffocating hometown and moved to New York for university. After graduation, I found a job at an interior design firm. For the first time, I was living a life I had carved out with my own strength. Free from constant comparisons, I finally felt genuine fulfillment. That was when I met Tom. He was the architect of the model room I had been assigned to design. More than anyone else, he understood my concept and praised it. Your designs are warm. They're not just stylish, they carry a gentleness that fits the lives of the people who will live there. His sincere words and the way his eyes truly saw me drew me to him. Soon, we fell in love, and it wasn't long before we married. 3 years into our marriage, every day was filled with peace and sunlight. And then, new life blossomed between us. I was 3 months pregnant. Stroking my barely rounded belly while Tom and I flipped through baby catalogs was pure happiness. This crib is cute, but I also like this organic cotton bedding set. You're rushing ahead, Mary, but you know what? Let's just buy both. This is our child. We'll give them the happiest life in the world. He leaned close, pressing his ear gently to my stomach. Can you hear me? It's your dad. I can't wait to meet you. His warm voice wrapped around both me and the tiny life inside me. Then, one day, a call came from his family. Tom's grandfather had passed away, and Tom was set to inherit both the business and the family assets. The sum? $5 million. Enough to completely transform our lives. $5 million? Tom, is that really true? Yes. Honestly, I can hardly believe it myself. But this means you and our baby will want for nothing. I'm so relieved. We held each other tightly, certain our future was shining bright. My parents rejoiced when we told them the news. Everyone was happy except my sister, Sarah. Sarah had always taken a twisted joy in destroying what mattered to me. I will never forget the summer when I was in 4th grade. I had cared for my morning glory plant day after day, pouring my heart into it. At the city science fair, I won the gold prize. For the first time, my parents patted my head and said, "You did well." It was the proudest moment of my life. But the day before the ceremony, I found the pot shattered in pieces beneath our balcony. I froze in shock as Sarah smirked behind me. Oops, I slipped. Sorry. But honestly, it's kind of fair. You always get all the praise. It was starting to annoy me. She laughed without a hint of guilt. My parents only said, "She didn't mean it. Forgive her, Mary." All I could do was cry in silence. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how much joy I found, it could all be crushed instantly by her. So when I saw the gleam in Sarah's eyes after hearing about Tom's inheritance, I knew something terrible was coming. Wow, 5 million. That's incredible, sis. You really hit the jackpot with Tom, huh? Though her words sounded congratulatory, her tone carried the hungry edge of a predator spotting prey. At that time, I had no idea this was only the beginning of a nightmare. The change came quietly, but it was certain. Sarah started visiting our new home frequently. "Mary, how's the morning sickness?" "I just wanted to check on you." But the gifts she brought were always cakes from Tom's favorite high-end pastry shop. And her eyes? They were never on me, always on him. "Tom, work must be exhausting lately. Aren't your shoulders stiff?" she asked, reaching out to massage him with an easy smile. Even when Tom awkwardly brushed her off, she only laughed. "Oops, sorry, habit." Her light tone made my skin crawl. One weekend, when I wasn't feeling well and lay resting on the sofa, Sarah arrived with her usual excuse of just visiting. From the kitchen, I overheard her honeyed whisper, "Tom, aren't you actually into someone more exciting? Don't you think someone plain like my sister is boring?" Sarah, stop. Oh, come on. It's true, isn't it? How about we grab a drink, just the two of us? I can show you a much more thrilling world. Her words slithered through the thin wall, sickly sweet like a devil's temptation. My blood ran cold. My own sister was brazenly trying to seduce my husband while I was carrying his child. Shaking, I forced myself up and walked into the kitchen. "Sarah, what did you just say?" She looked startled for only a second before her lips curled into a triumphant smile. "Oh, you heard that. So what? Tom doesn't seem to mind, does he? How could you say such a thing? Tom, what about you?" I turned to him, desperate for his denial. But he averted his eyes, visibly uncomfortable. "Mary, calm down. Sarah's just joking." That half-hearted excuse only deepened my unease. From that day on, the air in our home grew unbearably heavy, like lead. At night, I often found Tom alone in the study, nursing a glass of whiskey, his back tense. That back looked burdened by something immense, and I knew it wasn't just my imagination. Sarah's behavior escalated. Her social media began to overflow with posts hinting at Tom. A secret meeting at a private bar with someone special. In the photo she uploaded, through the rim of a glass, you could clearly see Tom's distinctive wristwatch, deliberately framed. A gift from him. His taste is impeccable. It was the exact brand of handkerchief Tom had given me for my birthday, only in a different color. Each time worried friends messaged me, "Mary, are you okay? Isn't this a problem?" It felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. Finally, I confronted him. "Tom, what is this? Explain it to me." But all I got in return were cold words. "You're overthinking. We just met for business." Business? Alone with my sister? And giving her presents? Enough already. You're so damn annoying. For the first time, Tom raised his voice at me. The kindness I once knew in his eyes was gone, replaced by ice. And then the day that sealed my fate arrived without warning. I was 5 months pregnant by then, my belly finally showing. That morning, Tom had been unusually irritable, and I didn't dare speak to him. He came home past midnight, glanced at me waiting in the living room, and finally opened his mouth. "Mary, I want a divorce." My mind went blank. The words didn't even register at first. What? Why? That's a joke, right? I'm serious. I've lost all interest in you. My feelings are gone. No. What about the baby? Or child? I can't see that baby as mine. The words pierced me like blades. The child he once celebrated so joyfully, the child he had longed for, he now discarded as if it were nothing. I felt my knees buckle beneath me, my voice stolen by despair. And then the doorbell rang. Tom opened the door. Standing there, as if perfectly timed, was Sarah. She wore a sleek, glamorous dress, her lips curled in a mocking smile. "Well, Mary, finished talking?" She strutted over and looped her arm through Tom's, flaunting the gesture before me. "Sorry, Mary, but love can't be stopped." Tom chose me. "No, that can't. You've always been this way. Just a shadow, a dull little woman." Finally, Tom realized it too. She yanked open my closet, grabbed my maternity clothes, and tossed them onto the floor. "These ugly things don't belong in Tom's house, do they?" The humiliation seared me, but all I could do was bite my lip until it bled. My world was crumbling into dust, my beloved husband, my own sister, joining hands to drag me into hell. Tom is marrying me. I'm the one fit to be the wife of a man with $5 million in assets, not you. Her triumphant declaration struck my heart like a dagger. Tom said nothing. He only looked down at me with frigid eyes, watching my trembling form as though I were a stranger. The lawyer's already been called. I'll pay child support. But leave this house. Tonight. Those were the last words I ever heard from Tom. Pregnant, clutching my swollen belly, I was thrown out of the home filled with memories. The cold rain poured down, concealing my tears. Having lost everything, I couldn't return to my parents' home. Instead, I began living in a rundown apartment tucked away in a corner of the city, surviving on the small savings I had managed to put aside during my student days. The only view from the window was the concrete wall of the building next door. The happiness I once knew felt like a distant dream. Only the life inside me gave me hope. For this child, I could not give up. Day after day, I stroked my growing belly, whispering to myself, I must live. I have to protect you. I went to every checkup alone, attended prenatal classes alone. Each time I saw smiling couples around me, I ran to the bathroom, stifling sobs. And yet, news of Tom and Sarah reached me whether I wanted it or not. Barely a month after our divorce proceedings began, they announced their relationship. Social media exploded with images of their lavish life, dinners at luxury restaurants, trips to overseas resorts, designer goods worth tens of thousands of dollars. Sarah beamed in every photo, like a queen who had conquered the world. Tom's smile, however, seemed stiff. But I told myself that was only my wishful thinking. And then winter came. In the freezing solitude of my tiny apartment, I endured labor alone and gave birth to my daughter, Hannah. The pain was so blinding that I nearly called out Tom's name, but I bit down on my lip instead. A small, warm life. When I heard her first cry, tears streamed down my face in a way they never had before. My hatred for Tom, my rage toward Sarah, all of it melted into nothing. I swore then, even if it cost me my life, I would protect this child. Life with Hannah was harsher than anything I could have imagined. Day and night blurred together as I rocked her endlessly, earning barely enough through small side jobs to cover milk and diapers. The money vanished almost instantly. Though child support was being paid, raising a baby alone was overwhelming. In the dead of night, as I cradled Hannah against my chest after she finally fell asleep, waves of suffocating loneliness would crash over me. An isolation so deep it felt like I had been cut off from the world itself. Still, her peaceful sleeping face was my only salvation. If I could protect her smile, I could endure anything. Slowly, I was becoming stronger as a mother. Then, on a spring day when Hannah turned 3 months old, I found an envelope in my mailbox. It was from a law office claiming to represent Tom. My heart raced with dread. Had they grown tired of the child support demands? With trembling hands, I tore it open. What I read inside was beyond anything I could have imagined. We regret to inform you that our client, Mr. Tom Jackson, your husband, with whom you are currently undergoing divorce proceedings, has recently passed away due to a subarachnoid hemorrhage. Tom is dead? It felt as though I'd been struck in the head with a blunt weapon. Impossible. He had been so full of life. I had hated him, resented him, felt utterly betrayed, and yet tears streamed down my face. Memories of our once happy days flooded my mind like a reel of film, unbidden and merciless. The notice included the date and location of the funeral. Should I go? Or should I stay away? I agonized all night. I couldn't bear to see Sarah's face, but if I didn't say goodbye to Tom one last time, I knew I would regret it forever. At last, I made my decision. Clutching Hannah tightly to my chest, I swore I would go. The funeral was held in an opulent hall in the heart of the city, far too extravagant, a monument to Sarah's vanity. Dressed in my old black dress, with Hannah bundled against me in a sling, I stood quietly in the corner. At the center of the altar was Tom's portrait, his smile the same gentle one I had once known. And before it, Sarah played her part to perfection, the grieving widow. Draped in designer morning clothes, she greeted each mourner with teary eyes and trembling voice. He was truly a wonderful man. It was all so sudden. But watching her, what I felt was not grief. It was cold, burning fury. You have no right to mourn him. When the ceremony ended and the hall emptied, Sarah finally noticed me. Well, you actually came. I'm amazed you had the nerve. She spat, her voice thick with hate. You and Tom are nothing now. Just get out. You disgust me. I have the right to say a final goodbye to him. Right? Don't make me laugh. I am Tom's wife, and I am the one who will inherit his $5 million. Sarah's words dripped with victory, her declaration shameless. Did she even realize the divorce hadn't been finalized? Just then, an older gentleman approached us. Excuse me, my name is Richard Fisher. I was Mr. Tom Jackson's legal counsel. His voice was polite, but carried authority. Before his passing, Mr. Jackson entrusted me with his will. With the family now present, I intend to open and disclose it today at my office. A will? Sarah's eyes widened. Of course. Naturally, Tom's assets will all be inherited by me, his wife. Lawyer, let's go immediately. Read it aloud, so this woman can see for herself what a pathetic loser she is. She grabbed my arm roughly. You're coming too. Watch carefully as you're crushed beneath the truth. Lawyer Fisher placed a firm hand between us, gently but firmly pulling her back. Then he pleaded. Mary, please, will you come? It was Mr. Jackson's express wish. His steady gaze left me no room to refuse. Wordlessly, I nodded. Something was about to begin. The reception room of the law office was thick with tension. Sarah lounged arrogantly on the sofa, her parents fidgeting uneasily beside her. I sat stiffly in a hard chair, holding Hannah close. Now then, we shall proceed with the disclosure of Mr. Tom Jackson's last will and testament. Lawyer Fisher solemnly removed a sealed document from an envelope. Sarah's lips curled into a smile, her eyes flashing, urging him to hurry. I, Tom Jackson, do hereby declare the following distribution of my estate after my death. The lawyer's voice filled the room. Article 1. Regarding the business inherited from my grandfather, Frank Jackson, along with all assets and liabilities attached to it. Sarah leaned forward eagerly. Finally, the main point. All of it shall be inherited by my wife, Sarah Jackson. Yes. Sarah let out a small cry of triumph. Her parents nodded in satisfaction. But the lawyer's face didn't change as he continued, calmly, mercilessly. However, it must be noted here that at the time of inheritance, the liabilities of the business far exceeded its assets, amounting to a total of $5.2 million in debt. What? Sarah's foolish voice echoed through the office. Debt? $5 million? That has to be some kind of mistake. It is no mistake, the lawyer replied, utterly unmoved by her panic. What Mr. Jackson inherited was indeed a vast fortune from his grandfather's business. But in order to expand into new ventures, he took on enormous loans. Those debts consumed nearly all of the assets. Therefore, as the legal heir, Mrs. Sarah Jackson will find that very little, if anything, remains. I could see the blood drain from her face. Her lips trembled violently, unable to form words. No, that's not true. Tom wouldn't. The lawyer gave her only the briefest glance before continuing to read. Article 2. Regarding the personal assets owned by himself, Tom Jackson. Sarah stared at his mouth now, as though clinging to her last shred of hope. I hereby bequeath my condominium and associated land and property, appraised at $800,000 in value, entirely to my former wife, Mary Baker. What? This time, it was my turn to widen my eyes in shock. Sir, what does that mean? It means exactly as it states, he replied firmly. In fact, 1 month before his passing, Mr. Jackson completed the process of gifting this property to you while still alive. Thus, it is not even inheritance property, it is Mary's sole and rightful possession. The will had been written earlier, before his death was imminent, which was why both wife and former wife appeared in different places. But legally, the gift was indisputable. At last, Sarah snapped. This is insane. This is fraud. That house was supposed to be mine. I was meant to live there with him. No. Legally, there is no error whatsoever. The lawyer's cold pronouncement shattered her last illusion. She had betrayed her sister, stolen her husband, and dreamed of claiming $5 million. And what she received instead was nothing but crushing, astronomical debt. Sarah collapsed onto the sofa, face ashen, while her parents muttered frantically, "How? How could this be?" Unmoved by the chaos, Lawyer Fisher turned to me with quiet respect. "Mary, I also have something else entrusted personally to you by Mr. Jackson." He handed me a thick envelope. Written in Tom's familiar handwriting were the words, "To my beloved Mary." Clutching Hannah close, I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were several sheets of stationery and a single USB drive. "To my dearest Mary, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer in this world. First, let me apologize. I hurt you deeply. I was the worst kind of husband. I am so sorry. But believe this, not once did I stop loving you. My heart, from beginning to end, belonged only to you. There was a reason I changed so suddenly. Do you remember the words Sarah said to me that day in the kitchen? 'Isn't someone plain like my sister boring?' You only heard part of that conversation. But there was more. If your wife is in the way, I can take care of it. For example, I could push her down the stairs. Since she's pregnant, it would be easy to make it look like an accident." I couldn't believe my ears. Sarah had said it without shame, without hesitation. Her eyes were wild with jealousy and greed. At that moment, I understood she was willing to kill you and our unborn child if it meant claiming my fortune. The police could do nothing without evidence. And if I told you, you would only be put in danger. There was only one way left to protect you both from this devil. I played the role of the worst husband. I pushed you away, forced you to leave, so that you would be safe. Then I chose to marry Sarah, not out of love, but to stay close, to watch her every move, to gather proof from within. Life with her was hell beyond imagination. She monitored me constantly, even installing spyware on my phone. To lower her guard, I had to live on edge, every second, pretending. And all the while, I knew my own body was a ticking time bomb. Long ago, doctors had told me about the aneurysm in my brain. They warned me, avoid stress, rest. But with Sarah, every day was like someone pressing their finger on the detonator. The headaches grew worse. Each time pain ripped through me, I pictured your face and the face of our child, and I endured. After the marriage, I began investigating her background thoroughly. What I discovered was staggering. Sarah had targeted multiple wealthy men, plotting marriage fraud with each of them. Worse still, when she realized my grandfather's fortune was drowned in debt, she shifted her aim to my life insurance. I found proof she was attempting to poison me slowly, little by little, through my meals. I knew my time was short. At any moment, a vessel in my brain could burst. That's why I had to see this plan through, no matter the cost. Perhaps my subarachnoid hemorrhage wasn't directly caused by Sarah's hand, but the relentless stress she inflicted lit the fuse and burned it down. To me, it was nothing less than indirect murder. Inside the unclosed USB, you'll find everything. Recordings of her calls with her con artist partners, records of her poison purchases, and even diary entries where she described in detail her plan to remove you. I couldn't leave much behind. As I worked to untangle the debts from my grandfather's estate, the only thing I managed to protect was that apartment, a place where you and Hannah could live in peace. That was the one thing I was determined to leave you. Mary, the 3 years I had with you were my entire life. Your smile was my sun. My only regret is never meeting our daughter. Please, love her with all your heart, for both of us. And Mary, find happiness again. I love you. Always. Tom. When I finished reading, my cheeks were drenched with tears. What I had believed to be betrayal was, in truth, a desperate plan to protect me and Hannah. He had carried that burden alone, sacrificing everything. My chest ached so sharply it was hard to breathe. Tom, you fool. Why? The sob broke from me before I could stop it. This? This can't be. Sarah, who had snatched the letter from my hands, let out a strangled cry. But it was too late. I wiped my tears and turned firmly to Lawyer Fisher. Please submit this USB to the police. I leave everything in your hands. Of course. That was also Mr. Jackson's final wish. He looked me in the eyes, his voice steady. Tom knew the state of his health. He made his choices with full awareness, all to protect you and your child. He was truly a strong man. Once the evidence reached the police, events moved swiftly. Days later, the news shook the nation. On charges of serial marriage fraud and conspiracy to commit murder targeting wealthy men, suspect Sarah Jackson has been arrested. It is believed she married her own sister's husband, only to inherit crushing debt. On screen, Sarah appeared in handcuffs, her face twisted in rage as she screamed. The false kingdom she had tried to build collapsed in an instant. Her greed had dragged her straight into hell. It was karma. I returned to the apartment Tom had preserved for us. In the corner of the room stood the baby crib he had assembled. Beside it, a small card. Welcome, Hannah. From Dad. The tears came again, but they were no longer tears of despair. They were tears of hope, hope for the future Tom had given his life to secure. I held Hannah tightly to my chest. Hannah, your father was the bravest, kindest man in the world. The grief would not vanish easily. Life without him would be painful. But in my arms, I carried the warm light he had left behind. I was no longer anyone's victim, no longer anyone's shadow. I was a person in my own right, and a strong mother, ready to walk forward into the future with my daughter. Soft sunlight streamed through the window, wrapping us both in its gentle warmth. Thank you, Tom. Watch over us. I promise we will be happy. I whispered it in my heart, then smiled at Hannah. My new life had begun.